What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson, I'm your host. The divisional rounds are over. 4 teams remain. The Bengals made it. Breech's tree is still up. Joining me, a very fired up Ryan Wilson and a very cleanly cut John Breech, who's excited for his Bengals. What's up, guys?
Are you cleanly cut, Breech? You look about normal, except that your hair looks a little better. Like you maybe brushed it slightly after that crazy game this afternoon.
I do it up for Bengals games, Bengals Sunday. You know, like some people wear their Sundays best at church. I do my hair up on Sundays for Bengals games. That's my good luck charm, and my Christmas tree still up. This is a fantastic Sunday. I'm ready to roll.
As RJ Ridge notes, we're basically on time, starting right at 10 o'clock. Pretty fantastic for to get these early start times for these podcasts, as opposed to most Sunday nights when we have a late Sunday night football. We'll start with the 49ers and the Cowboys, and then we'll get to Breech's Bengals after the break. I know that the play. I hate to linger on the final play of the game because they weren't going to. They were 70 yards away. They weren't going to score, right? But my goodness, it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Dak Prescott getting a snap from Zeke Elliott, throwing to Kayvon Turpin, and then just everybody getting leveled for the Cowboys. And you never see a lateral play end in just immediately. They always get one lateral.
You never see a lateral play fail before a lateral actually gets lateral. And it's who designs these end of game plays for the Cowboys? We saw how it ended last year with the QB draw. We saw how it ended this year. And again, they weren't going to score. That it really doesn't matter. Just that the call was so ridiculous that that really epitomized really the game.
I had a quote that I wrote down at the end of this game after that last play, which looked like something that you would draw up at a Thanksgiving get together with your family when you knew that you were going to lose. Tell me if you know the movie. Just when I thought you couldn't get any dumber,
Dumb and Dumber,
you go out and do something like this and totally redeem yourself. I mean, that last play a year ago, we talked about that for months. And then the comeback was to have Zeke Elliott play center, get absolutely steamroll when he snapped the ball, and then throw a short pass that gets tackled for a 5 or 6 yard gain. What are you doing?
I did go back and look at it, but so Zeke was, it was like that famous Colts punt where they had nobody out there, but was it all other skill position guys out there? So it was at least that's the theory is let's get our fastest guys out there for the crazy lateral play and hope something weird happens. I mean, because he didn't line up the offensive, because you have to. I don't think legally speaking, you can just put one lineman out there, right?
No, you have to have 7 guys on the line of scrimmage, so it just doesn't matter where they are. But
right, but I mean, you can lateral to anybody, you just can't throw the pass to anybody.
Correct. So you can only have 5 eligibles. But I don't know what the plan was.
Well, and that was their thinking, though, is that you put your 10 fastest guys in Dak Prescott, and it doesn't matter that Zeke is snapping it because he's not getting the pass. Right. He's eligible. Yeah, he's eligible to get the lateral, and that's all that matters, something like that.
All right. Anyway, that play didn't decide the game.
Well, you know what? I will say what that play did and relate it to the rest of the game is that Kayvon Turpin got crushed and destroyed on that play because Dak Prescott threw it right, led him into the defender. The defender came up and made an easy play, and it was Dak Prescott's fault. You could really argue they lost this game.
Yeah.
For that throw or for something else?
For just the whole game. The whole game.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with that.
100%. Interceptions. He definitely had a couple good throws, but it was the whole playoffs, the whole past month, we've been saying, hey, Dak turns the ball over all the time. He fooled me. I fell for it against the Buccaneers. I said, man, he didn't turn the ball over at all against Tampa Bay. If he does that against San Francisco, doesn't turn the ball over, I think Dallas can win. And then the old Dak comes out and throws 2 interceptions. The 49ers get 6 points out of that. And really,
is that even old Dak or is that just regular Dak?
It's probably regular Dak. No old Dak.
I think it's not Dak against Minnesota. That's all it is.
Because they talked about this on the telecast. Against pressure, Dak Prescott has thrown more interceptions than any other person on planet Earth. He had 10 this season. And right when they said that late in the game, he almost threw an interception on the first throw of the last drive there on just a little turnaround 10-yard pass that was late. He threw a lot late. He missed a lot of throws down the field, either underthrow or just missed the target he was trying to hit. I don't know. And, Billy said this before the pod. Dak seems to get cut a lot of slack, and I think that's right. I don't know if people are focused on Jerry Jones or Mike McCarthy or, the fact that he's on all these commercials and he smiles and says all the right things, but Brock Purdy wasn't lights out. Brock Purdy outplayed him.
But yeah, Brock Purdy's a rookie. Dak is a $40 million quarterback. Dak has had a lot of highs and lows this year. You're not going to he's above, the late Chris Wesson came up with the Andy Dalton, the Dalton line, right? Where he's above that. It's just like he does some really dumb stuff. It feels like almost every Cowboys quarterback always does some like dumb stuff. They're a manifestation of Jerry Jones.
Who are the other ones?
I can't recall any in the past.
Oh, you're talking about Romo or something. I didn't know who you meant in particular.
No, I think Romo's a great quarterback, but I mean, like he would always just have.
No, he was a gunslinger for sure. Yeah. I thought you meant like one of the backups that came in or Andy Dalton or something.
I just didn't want to drag our colleague through the ground. They haven't been in the NFC Championship game since '95, 12-5 the last 2 years. Any chance that Mike McCarthy is in trouble? I don't think so.
It felt like up until that last play he was fine, but that last play to me said, I dare you to fire me. Sort of like a Brandon Staley taking a last stand, Game of Thrones style. But Jerry's been committed to him. I don't think he's going to fire him. And at the end of the day, I would imagine that play probably worked every time in practice. Unfortunately, the 49ers have a pretty good defense, and they weren't going to fall for that.
Yeah, tend to agree with that. Tony Pollard got hurt in the game. It felt like Dallas' offense completely stagnated once that happened. Zeke is just, man, he is not it right now. Dalton Schultz and Pollard both are free agents after this offseason. We don't linger on Dallas too long just because they lost the game. They're done. But, I don't know. I mean, the Giants look like they're improving rapidly. The Eagles have a really nice foundational base to keep playing good football over the next few years with Jalen Hurts there and a bunch of studs along the lines and some really good skill guys. Like, I don't know. The Cowboys are just sort of have been stuck in this like middling mall for I don't know, like 22 years. It doesn't feel like they're going to advance out of it anytime soon.
Well, I mean, the graphic, if you're watching on YouTube, finished 12-5 in back-to-back seasons. We give Dak cut him a lot of slack. Mike McCarthy, we give a lot of crap to, but they did go 12-5 in back-to-back seasons. Now they're not winning playoff games. I don't disagree with that. And they sort of feel like the original current Minnesota Vikings in that, they're lights out and then things fall apart in January. But I mean, they're not the Bears or the Lions either.
Yeah, and look, we've all noted that this Zeke Elliott contract was kind of ridiculous. The Cowboys should have never given it to him. But guess what? They have an out. After this season, this Cowboys season's over. Now they can get out of that Zeke Elliott contract, and now that opens up salary cap room, and you can go do smart things instead of giving a ton of money to instead of giving $90 million to a running back. So I don't think that the Cowboys are in terrible shape. I mean, you guys we talked about this a lot last night. I still think the Eagles are probably in the best shape of any team in the NFC East. And certainly the Giants are on the rise. But again, the Cowboys are coming off 2 12-5 seasons. And it's not like they're losing their core players. They might lose Zeke Elliott. But besides that, they're going to have some money and they should be able to add to their team. So I don't think they're in a horrible spot.
Let me ask you this, Breech. How do you feel about their quarterback?
I mean, you guys mentioned the Andy Dalton scale. He's better than Andy Dalton, but like there's the Kirk Cousins scale now where it feels like you have a quarterback that's certainly good enough to get you to the divisional round, but it does feel like the Dak's ceiling is not a Super Bowl. Maybe he eventually gets them to an NFC title game. And that's the tease with him is that, Andy Dalton couldn't win a playoff game. I do think Dak can win you playoff games, but I don't think he's winning you a Super Bowl. So I guess I don't know what you do if you're the Cowboys. You're just in do we go and hope we can find someone better, or do we just ride it out with Dak and hope he can win it for us?
I mean, 29, you're not going anywhere for a while.
Would you rather have Dak on this football team, Dak Prescott or Kirk Cousins?
Dak Prescott.
I don't know if I would answer that quickly. I just don't know.
I would think about Dak, or I would think about Kirk. I'm not.
It's a half a dozen of one.
It's closer than Brinson made it sound.
I knew when he said Kirk Cousins, I would rather have Dak.
And real quick on Dak, including the 2 first-half interceptions today, he threw 14 first-half interceptions during the season, and no other NFL quarterback even threw 10. And keep in mind that Dak missed 5 games. So he led the NFL in first-half interceptions by 5 and missed 5 games.
And the 2 interceptions, I know one popped up off of a defender's head, but it was like he was basically, it hit him. It was going to be picked by him, and somebody else picked it because it popped up. Were really bad throws by Dak. And I think, you look at this Cowboys' last 8 games as playoff underdogs. They are 0-8. Last time they won a game as a playoff underdog was the 1992 NFC Championship against the Niners. With all those picks in the regular season, with these picks in the playoffs, I know he played great against Minnesota. Minnesota's defense was awful, right?
Yeah, they weren't good.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, I'm not blaming Dak's performance on Mike McCarthy, but if I'm Jerry Jones and I'm at his age, and Sean Payton is this former, this Super Bowl winning coach who's, a quarterback guru who was on my staff before, who has made it like clear that he would be, it seems to me he's made it clear he either wants Dallas or the Chargers job. I meant Tampa, not Minnesota. Sorry, I blacked out. I think that for me, I would probably be looking at going to try and get Sean Payton if I was Jerry Jones. Now, I don't know that he's necessarily going to do it. I just think you could talk Sean Payton into coming into Dallas, and you would maybe get a better performance from Dak Prescott if you had Sean Payton.
I'll just say, I can't believe I'm going to say this. Other than the last two calls of the season for the Cowboys the last 2 years, Mike McCarthy's been fine. He's been a little more aggressive. He's done some things that leave you scratching your head, but he's probably middle of the road in terms of just coaching in general. Just from watching generally on Sunday's point of view. You mentioned Sean Payton getting over the hump, but again, Sean Payton played with Andy Dalton, Breech's dude, and then last year they had Jameis Winston, who played the best of his career. Now, obviously, Dak is better than both those guys put together, but how much more are you getting from Dak when Sean Payton shows up? Who, by the way, as we have to point out, he went 7-9 3 straight seasons in New Orleans. So it wasn't like he's going to come in and win 15 games automatically. That's all I'm saying.
I think it would be an upgrade. I don't know. I don't necessarily think that Jerry Jones will do it. I would do it if it was possible to pull off. That's all I'm saying. Breech, Sean Payton, Mike McCarthy.
Well, I just think that if you're Jerry Jones and you are of the mindset that, hey, I am in my twilight years. I'm 80 years old. I want to see this team win a Super Bowl before I die. And maybe he lives to be 90. Maybe he lives to be 100. We don't know. But,
maybe he lives forever.
Maybe he lives forever. He has the money. But the thing is, you have to start thinking about making some big, crazy moves, and hiring Sean Payton, I think, will qualify as a big, crazy move. But again, man, if you hire Payton and he only wins 10 games next year, then, then you look silly for hiring Mike McCarthy. So it's not an easy move to make. So I understand why Jerry Jones may feel like he's in a quandary, or why he feels like he shouldn't move on from Mike McCarthy, because, we talk about all the time about the Lions moved on from Jim Caldwell. Again, different franchises, and Caldwell worked a miracle by making the Lions good, and they shouldn't have moved on.
What did he do, though? 9-7 in back-to-back years? Is that what you're going to say?
Yes, 9-7 in back-to-back years, and he should not have been let go. And so, you don't want to be Jerry Jones regretting that you let go Mike McCarthy, who wins you 12 games 2 years in a row.
Someone mentioned this in the comments. What about this? Instead of Sean Payton, what about if you move heaven and earth to get Lamar?
I think you paid Dak. You're rolling.
What if you trade Dak? Like, what if Lamar says, I'm not playing in Baltimore? You trade Dak to Baltimore, and then you give them whatever they want.
I just don't. You have to give them you give them like an extra first round pick, and like there's a bunch of money. The money stuff and I know what you're saying. I don't.
Were you getting up a first round pick if you want Sean Payton?
Ooh.
And he can't. Well, he can throw the football. He played quarterback, but I don't think you want him playing quarterback.
Let's move on to the 49ers. They won the game. Brock Purdy. I thought Dallas's defense, by the way, played really well in this game. Sort of wore down late, but the defense came out hot. We're hitting them like crazy. The pass rush was getting home. Tons of pressure on Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy could have thrown 3 picks in this game if Dallas had held onto the picks. Maybe it's an entirely different game. By the way, we should point out on Dallas too. Brett Mayer bounced back. Not that he has to kick again for the rest of the year, but 2 field goals made. That blocked extra point that was good. It was definitely going to miss was something else. And then he banged down the field goal. So that was kind of fun. San Francisco kind of got it going after a slow start. I thought Purdy made some really good plays. It's weird because the way that Purdy has been built up as this quarterback over the course of this stretch where they've won, I think now 12 games in a row or 13 games in a row. It was, it's like people are like, is Brock Purdy good? Like, do we know? Well, he's really good for the last pick of the draft, who's a rookie. And in this situation, against a stout defense, I know that he made mistakes. But for a guy of his pedigree and in a rookie season to play like that, I thought was really, really impressive, especially after sort of a slow, shaky start where there was a bunch of pressure on him. Thought he made some big plays. Will be the 5th rookie to start a conference championship game. Mark Sanchez in 2009, the last one. Joe Flacco in 2008. Big Ben in 2004, Sean King in 1999. All 4 of those lost with a combined 4 passing touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Of course, We will not see Brock Purdy as a favorite. He's a 2-point dog early on at Philadelphia. What do you think of Brock Purdy's performance, Wilson?
No, I think you hit it on the head. I actually made a note right before the Christian McCaffrey touchdown. On that drive, he made some throws that you're like, okay, you're trying to do too much, which is sort of the knock on him coming out of Iowa State his final year there. And you saw at times where early in the game, Shanahan was, sort of like, all right, just do what I'm asking you to do. Don't be trying to do too much. And I'm fine giving him a pass on that, though. As you point out, he's a rookie. He hasn't played a ton. He wasn't expected to play at all. We didn't know he's going to make the freaking team back in August. So all this stuff is gravy, given where they are. And part of me wonders, Breech, if this sort of waters down what Garoppolo accomplished a year ago. Because, we were all like, oh, my God, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get paid. And then the Trey Lance thing happened in terms of him being the starter this year. And I think it's more of a function of anyone can play in the system and be pretty good. Now, that doesn't bode well for Trey Lance, perhaps. So that's a conversation for another time. But, hats off to Brock Purdy for taking care of business. And he still made some big throws. And he made much bigger throws in terms of completing them than Dak Prescott did.
Yeah, well, I mean, it might add insult to injury to Jimmy Garoppolo. He's going to go out and try to get a $35 million contract in March, and teams are like, that Brock Purdy dude put up better numbers than you in Shanahan's system. So, we don't know how good you really are until we see you thrive outside that system. But yeah, Brock Purdy, and I will say I've been since the end of the season, I said I wasn't going to pick the 49ers to win the Super Bowl because they have a rookie starting quarterback. And I really feel like Shanahan feels the same way about rookie quarterbacks, that we are not putting this game on his shoulders. I'm going to put as much as I can on Christian McCaffrey or Elijah Mitchell, or, I'm not going to ask him to do too much. And I do think Brock Purdy made probably 3 or 4 good throws. I don't think he played a great game. But the thing is, the 49ers are so good, they can win without him playing a great game. The Bills, for instance, if Josh Allen does not play a great game, they're in trouble. But Brock Purdy doesn't play a great game. The 49ers defense will hold the other team to under 2 touchdowns, and you can just throw shovel passes to Deebo Samuel or Christian McCaffrey, get the ball to George Kittle. There are just so many weapons that it's really unbelievable. So I think the fact that they are going to the conference title game says a lot. He could have absolutely cracked under the pressure. He has not. He has looked decent, and that's all you can ask when you are dealing with the final pick in the NFL draft. You have a Mr. Relevant running the show, and he's got you the conference title game. That says something. So I really think that says a lot about Shanahan too.
Yeah, I mean, again, we go back to people like, well, he's in the Shanahan system, that's why he's winning. It's like, well, yes, Kyle Shanahan makes it easier for quarterbacks because he gives them lots of open looks. He gives them lots of, very quickly designed plays. And you trust that's why you go and trade for Christian McCaffrey. It's why you sign Deebo Samuel. You let your playmakers make big plays for you near the line of scrimmage. That's perfectly fine. We talked about the Mike McDaniel offense in Miami and how it would potentially help Tua Tagovailoa thrive by getting the ball to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill in space and allowing them to explode and pick up yards after the catch. Well, that's the same thing they're doing with like Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, like ripping on Brock Purdy for, given that he was the last pick of the draft, that he's a rookie, that he's been doing all this for so long, like the guy makes good decisions. He makes them quickly. Now, could he have been picked off a couple times? Yeah. Cowboys got to execute better. Cowboys had some sloppy penalties too. They gave and some mistakes that helped San Francisco move the ball. It felt like it felt like there was another quarter of that game, and obviously that's not a hypothetical we live in, that the Niners could have like really gotten the run game going. That last drive where they ended up settling for a field goal, but it's like an 8-minute drive, just taking the air out of the ball, eating up clock. And if Elijah Mitchell doesn't go out of bounds, they obviously don't have to punt there. It's just a team that if they get downhill on you, they can really put you in non-advantageous positions. And as long as Brock Purdy doesn't turn the ball over, and he's been good about that, even if he's getting lucky some, the Niners look like a really good football team. The lines currently, double check Caesars. I see Eagles -2, which is a little bit off of what Billy predicted, but that's okay. You have Eagles -2 over under 45.5. San Francisco at Philadelphia. I would lean towards the 49ers personally. Look, these are 2 great games on next Sunday for Conference Championship Sunday.
I think
I lean toward the Eagles right now.
Eagles defense is better than the Cowboys, which, as you pointed out, actually played really well.
And the Eagles offense is better than the Cowboys.
Yeah, just by virtue of not having
Eagles are much better team than the Cowboys for sure.
Well, right, and the 49ers struggled with the Cowboys, so.
Brinson, don't you have an Eagles future?
I got a San Francisco future too.
Well, Billy, that's how you know Brinson serious.
Okay. I thought you only had.
I got 3 of the 4 teams. I had only 3 Super Bowl futures this year. No, 4. I have the Ravens too. 3 of my 4 Super Bowl futures are the 3 of the 4 final teams. Pretty excited about that. Bengals plus either one of these teams, I'm making good money in the Super Bowl. To answer your question. So anything else on the Niners before we take a break?
Breech, let me ask you quickly. I wrote this down after our poor dude Mar missed that extra point to start things, and he missed it so poor. I mean, he got blocked, but he missed it. It was going left anyway. It looked like in the replay. How rare is it to get an extra point blocked from 33 yards? Because when you're talking about a 50 or 55 yarder, you're trying to drive the ball. Like an extra point is virtually for these guys a chip shot, so the ball should be going straight up. So is it more mental than anything? Because that was a bad miss.
Oh, that was a completely mental kick. Because I mean, they showed a great replay on Fox that showed this thing was going to miss left by 30 yards. I mean, it looked like he hit it halfway up his ankle. It was just a horrible kick. The guy on the left side of the line who didn't break through at all should not have blocked that kick unless it was a bad kick. And so, it was a weird thing because, again, up to that point, now he's missed 6 of his past 7 extra points. And, good on McCarthy for having faith in this guy to kick a field goal, because you do. If your decision was, hey, this is our kicker for today, then you have to trust him to be your kicker for today and be comfortable sending him out there for field goals. Now, if he goes and misses one, that's different. You can change your mind. But he redeemed himself with 2 field goals. And, thankfully for the Cowboys, that extra point did not make a huge difference. You watch on YouTube, you can see the clip where it's just, it is going left. It's sideways.
Sure, duck hook.
You want end over end rotation, and this thing is sideways. Yeah. It was just an ugly kick. But yeah, that didn't end up impacting how the game played out, really.
No, Dak was
although
more
maybe
influential.
I guess you could say it did if when the Cowboys tied it 9-9, that it would have been 10-9, and maybe things are different because the 49ers are playing from behind or how they carry themselves. But yeah, so if you're Brett Maher, you just take a sigh of relief. You're probably not going back to the Cowboys next season. You're calling your agent and you say, all right, that should be good enough to at least get me a tryout with another team.
He's missing one of those 2 field goals, and probably both of them if that extra point isn't blocked.
Right, and it misses by that far. And the other thing I will say about Maher is with those 2 field goals, he ended the season with 12 straight made field goals. So the guy can't make an extra point, but hit 12 consecutive field goals to end the season.
Tough.
And since we're shouting out kickers, Robbie Gould hit 4 field goals. It is now 29 of 29 in his playoff career. The guy has never missed in the playoffs. That's insane. Evan McPherson's number 2 on that list, I think, was 17. So Robbie Gould has 12 more made field goals than any other kicker in NFL history who has made all of their field goals in the playoffs. So Robbie Gould with a phenomenal game.
Yeah, to be clear, no one is blaming Maher for costing the game, but Robbie Gould certainly helped the 49ers win the game. By the way, the 49ers defense came out of the gates hot too. That pass rush is vicious, and those guys hit hard. They make plays on the ball. They're smart. Like the play, I guess it's the next to last play where Dalton Schultz, not the next to last play, the second to last play. Dalton Schultz catches the ball. And was the defender? Was it Tre'Davious Ward who comes in and hits him, and then points at the ref and is like yelling like he's going backwards, because the rule is you have to be going forwards, like your progress has to be going forwards out of bounds to stop the clock. Well, the way that he hit him, the way that the coaching, like D'Amico Ryan's unbelievable coaching there to have the presence of mind to make sure that Dalton Schultz was not going out of bounds, and it resulted in the clock running and another 10 seconds burned off.
Well, and the thing on that one is that also Schultz, I don't think thought that was going to happen, because I feel like he could have darted out of bounds and stopped the clock, and it would have saved him about 15 seconds. And then you had the next play, with Dalton Schultz, where Schultz, I think, he assumed he caught it and went out of bounds, but he only got 1 foot down, and so that cost him 20 yards. So it was just silly play after silly play on that last drive.
So Dalton Schultz is the reason we can blame that final play where Zeke Elliott had to play center, because otherwise the ball would have been 20 yards further up the field. Yeah, it was a comedy of errors down the last.
Yep.
Dalton Schultz started some of them. Turpin caught the ball at the 6-yard line on that final drive. I don't know why you're doing that. In terms of guys responsible for why they lost, I think that Maher is pretty low on the list, and McCarthy, by the way, Jerry Jones said after the game that Mike McCarthy's job is.
I was about to say the same thing.
Oh yeah,
back to
Dak.
us.
I mean,
It's
yeah,
tough.
Dak's the one that's high on the list.
For the blame, or like, I mean, he's not
Yeah.
going anywhere.
No, why they lost.
Yeah, for sure.
Reasons why they lost.
Absolutely. I just want to point out two incredible catches in this game. CeeDee Lamb had the one where he skied up and like rotated over and it almost hit the ground. Didn't even budge, even though it hit the ground. Just an elite level catch. CeeDee Lamb stepped up in a big way for the Cowboys in this game, especially after they lost Tony Pollard and kept them in the game. And then holy crap, George Kittle. The one where it's like hits his hands off his face mask up in the air, bouncing around. He grabs it, has a presence of mind to like dive to the left and avoid the big hit, and then get up and do the funny like Michael Jordan tongue face. I mean, just and then later on, he even caught the sky came and did this weird like little look around. This is an unbelievable catch by George Kittle here. And the 49ers, I do think that you look at this team and they're clutch, man. I mean, they can kind of close out. And the Eagles are too. I think that it's going to be a great game. I don't know that, Kittle Skittles. There you go. I don't know that. I think it's one of those games where you can't definitively say, like the Eagles are just going to roll the 49ers, or the 49ers are going to like clearly upset them. I think it's just two really good teams. It's the 1 and 2 seeds in the conference, or the 1 of the 3 seed on the other side. That's why the bye is so important. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be an awesome conference championship Sunday. Let's take a break. Breech can peacock about his Bengals next. All right, Breech, your Bengals won. Our Bengals won. Our Bengals? No?
Brinson, I am driving like the Bengals motorcycle. You're in the sidecar, like eating cake and fruit roll-ups.
I mean,
but yes, I mean, it doesn't matter. Anybody can be on the Bengals bandwagon because this was an amazing win. I could barely even watch 49ers Cowboys. I was so excited and ecstatic about how this game played out. I mean, I think all three of us picked the Bengals to win. But I mean, even my wildest dreams, which let me tell you, get pretty wild. Yes. I did not think there was any way the Bengals would win this by more than 2 touchdowns. And really, though, the first 2 possessions after those happened, it was just like, I don't know, the Bills are ever going to be able to stop them. And it felt, they went up 14-0, and it felt just like they were going to coast to the win from there. And really, that's kind of what happened. But Joe Burrow just diced up the Bills defense, embarrassed them. I mean, he started 9-9 for 105 yards, 2 touchdown passes. And when Burrow's playing like that, and all the talk all week was, oh, the Bengals are down 3 offensive linemen. There's no way they can win. Burrow's going to get sacked 6 times. And my one argument to that all week was, look, the offensive line that played out there on Sunday was better than the one Burrow had last year. And yes, the offensive line was good this year. You never want to be down 3 starters, but Burrow's played behind a patchwork offensive line before. He knew what he was getting into. He was ready for this game. He was never going to let that be an issue. And so, obviously Joe Burrow's playing. The fact that Joe Mixon was able to run the ball so well, what they did on offense, I mean, they embarrassed the Bills, and I don't think anybody saw that coming.
Well, one of the things that we talked about was the Bills' run defense being sort of unreliable in recent weeks, in addition to Josh Allen not being Josh Allen. And those things together, to your point, Breech, showed up early and often because primarily with the running the ball by the Bengals and Joe Mixon there. But to your point, those first 2 drives, the Bengals had 100 yards of offense. They had 160 yards in the first quarter. I mean, that tells you all you need to know.
And the Bills had 8.
And the Bills had 8. And something I wrote down that I wanted to ask you, because I actually think that I know what the answer to this question is, but I'll ask you. Is this Bengals team better than last year's Bengals team?
Oh, absolutely. And maybe, the one thing about last year's playoff run is that it really was the defense that carried them, the defense that picked off Ryan Tannehill 3 times, Joe Burrow made huge plays in that game, but it was the Kansas City Chiefs game, the AFC Championship, they picked off Patrick Mahomes in overtime to kind of help preserve that. They made that huge play right before the end of the first half to keep Tyreek Hill out of the end zone. And so they just kept making huge plays, and the offense wasn't putting up big numbers. And I think Bengals fans kind of kept asking themselves, what happens if both sides of the ball play well in a playoff game? And we finally found that out here, is that you destroy the team that everybody thought was the preseason Super Bowl favorite. I don't think anyone at halftime thought the Bills were going to come back and win this game. It really was unbelievable how well they played on both sides of the ball. I mean, they upset Stephon Diggs so badly that he stormed out of the locker room, was yelling at Josh Allen on the sideline. I mean, they had the Bills ready to fight themselves. And so It was just remarkable how well the Bengals played. I can't even believe it. I am literally in shock at how much they dominated this game.
They played so well that I think Zach Taylor might be a good coach. That's how well they played. By the way, I will give Zach Taylor props for this because last week Mike McDaniel screwed up what he thought was going to be a 1st and 10. It was 3rd and 1. Didn't get the play in, and they had to go back 5 yards. And then Skylar Thompson didn't have a chance. Same thing happened at the goal line or close to the goal line. They got the play off. He was pissed that they didn't reset it. I get it, but he's like, all right, well, I got to call the play. They call the play, and maybe the difference is having a quarterback like Joe Burrow. It doesn't matter. I give Zach Taylor credit for that. And look, man, he's been doing what he's supposed to be doing. So I can't complain about what the results have been because hats off to him.
I thought the really impressive thing about what the Bengals did, and we talked about this all week leading up to it, whether it was on this show or the Pick Show, I talked about it on HQ. If the Bengals came out and tried to cover up the offensive line issues by running the football, it was going to end poorly. And they didn't. They came out and put the ball in Joe Burrow's hand, and they let him do what he does in the snow. Those receivers and like Hayden Hurst were running wide open. It was crazy. The Bills are a good defense. And then once they got this lead, they were able to sort of lean into the run game. The Bills' run defense wasn't there. The Bills' pass rush wasn't there. The Bills' run game wasn't there, and the Bills' pass rush wasn't there. I thought Joe Mixon played an awesome game. He was so physical in the run game downhill and just kept the chains moving. They would pick up it felt like they picked up every single 3rd down. I mean, obviously it's probably more like 60%, maybe even lower than that. But point being is, I mean, it was actually 60% on the dot. Come in. 412 yards of 325. 5.8 yards per play to 5.2, and that number is actually skewed by the Bengals kind of melting out the clock. 30 first downs to 18. This is a dominant ass kicking by the Bengals in Buffalo. Clearly a chip on their shoulder about the whole, no neutral site availability, the coin flip stuff. Like they have, and I get these DMs from Colin Bear, like a Bengals fan. Like all Bengals fans are like, believe that the NFL is treating them. And I think the NFL kind of screwed them over. The Bengals fans think that they're trying, the NFL is out to get them.
Well, I mean, I wrote a whole story on it, and look, there is no reason that the defending AFC champion should be able to go in a game with a chip on their shoulder because they're the disrespected underdog. That never should work out, but the Bengals could do it because they're a 6-point underdog, which was the most absurd point spread. I shared I never bet on the Bengals because I don't want to deal with the emotion of them losing money. So I never, ever bet on the Bengals, but I did in this game just because the point spread was just ridiculous that this team was a 6-point underdog. And to that point, since the beginning of the 2021 season, the Bengals have been an underdog of 2 points or more, a total of 13 times, including this game against the Bills. They are 12-0-1 against the spread, 9-4 straight up. So they're just dominating teams when they're the underdog. And then obviously, Joe Mixon's still tweeting about the neutral site game and the NFL already selling tickets. That angered the Bengals, and the coin toss with the Ravens and the playoff angered the Bengals. The fact that they didn't get a neutral site game with the Bills angered the Bengals. So you just have this team that's defending AFC champs that are 6-point underdog, and you put all these chips on their shoulder that they were going to come out angry, and they came out angry. And then their post-game interviews, they were letting it all out. Joe Burrow's "you better go get your refund" comment was so ice cold and perfect that it was just like, oh my God, this whole team is amazing. So I do think they are better than last year. I think they have more confidence than last year. They're more talented than last year. And last year it was kind of, you felt like Cinderella. This year they feel like they're the final boss. They're the team to beat, even though nobody else seems to think that.
I can't believe Joe Burrow was only sacked one time. Josh Allen was only sacked once, but he felt like he was running for his life. And again, I don't know how that elbow is. If we find out he has elbow surgery in 2 weeks, that wouldn't surprise me. But Breech, let me ask you, who is your MVP on the defensive side of the ball? And I have some names for you. Cam Taylor-Britt, my guy Mike Hilton, former Steeler, Trey Hendrickson, or someone else that you want to put in there?
BJ Hill.
DJ Reader had a fantastic game.
Yeah, I mean, the defensive line always should get a lot of credit, but if we want to just go outside, I'll go Mike Hilton because, look, the Bengals had some depth problems at defensive back. They were going to need Cam Taylor-Britt to come in and Dax Hill and Mike Hilton, and these guys are going to be playing a lot of snaps. And, I mean, that hit Mike Hilton put on Josh Allen that should have iced the game, but the guy was ruled a fumble on the field, overturned, ruled an incomplete pass. But whatever, they ended up, it's still a huge hit on Josh Allen. It's still big. I think Hilton had the most tackles. He was everywhere, and that's exactly, I mean, TJ Watt was on Twitter cheering for Mike Hilton. And I know he's next Steeler, but you never see Steelers players cheering for Bengals players. That is how well Mike Hilton was playing this game. So yeah, I mean, you could literally give just the game ball to everybody in the entire Bengals defense because I mean, they all brought their A game.
Eli Apple deserves some credit too. I think
Eli Apple.
Did you see him smoking a cigar at the post-game press conference or his post-game at the locker room? He's like, every time someone asks him a question, he just rip a huge thing off the cigar, blow it out, and be like, "We're the best defense in the world. We were dominant. We're elite." Look, the Bengals defense has been sneaky good for 2 years now. Lou Anarumo does a fantastic job with this unit. That people talk about Joe Burrow versus Patrick Mahomes, and I get it. You know, they are matched up. I mean, totally fair. But the defense and the job that Lou Anarumo has done against the Chiefs has been a difference maker in terms of how well this team has played against Kansas City.
By the way, Breech, this game could have been even worse. I'm looking back through my notes here. Your MVP, Mike Hilton, held that corner blitz 10 minutes into the fourth quarter that looked like a fumble. For some reason, it wasn't a fumble. Hendrickson recovers, so they will get the ball there. And then early in the game, in the first half, when Jamar Chase was inches close to catching that touchdown in the back of the end zone, it was actually a great play by Matt Milano. I think it was the right call, even though people were angry about it. But that could have made it 21-7 instead of 17-7. And the route could have been on. The Bills were out of timeouts with 7 minutes to go. That's how out of hand things were for that team.
I'll just say real quick on the Chase thing, because that was a huge thing at the time, obviously, when that touchdown got overturned because it came on 3rd and 10 or 3rd and goal from the 10. And, you know, if you watch the replay, there was a point when he fell down where the ball just wasn't in his hands and maybe he had it tucked in his arms in control of it. But, you know, I think the catch rule is dumb as it's written. That they correctly applied it, even if I don't agree with how the rule is written. So, you know, the officials did what the officials do. And, you know, the Bengals teams of old, the non-Joe Burrow teams would have maybe melted under a bad call like that. But no, this team went out, forced the Bills to punt on their next possession, took their field goal, and they're like, you know what, we'll go into halftime 17-7, and we're going to be thrilled. And one other thing on Josh Allen is that I thought if there was one throw that could have changed this game possibly, it was on Buffalo's first possession. He missed a wide open Stephon Diggs way down the field. He overthrew him. And if he hits that and Diggs scores a touchdown, maybe this is a completely different game. But instead, they go 3 and out. They punt. The Bengals score in the next possession. It's 14-0. And that's when it felt. I mean, I wasn't in celebration mode because it's a playoff game and anything can happen. But it really felt like, man, there is no way the Bengals are blowing a 14-0 lead. They look too good.
As a innocent bystander, as someone with no interest in the game in terms of who won, I knew that the game was over. It felt like it after the first 2 series. So you mentioned that drop early in the game, Breech. In the third, just late in the third quarter, 11 seconds to go, Cam Taylor-Britt, who I didn't love coming out. I thought he was a little stiff, but he has been balling out. Shout out to him for playing well and the Bengals for taking him in the second round. But typically when guys get beat, they just tackle the receiver down the field. Gabe Davis had the ball, hit his hands. He should have caught it. And you could see Cam Taylor-Britt wait, because he knew the ball was coming. He looked into his eyes. I think that's what you coach him to do. And as soon as the ball got there, he just, basically punched him in where the ball was supposed to be. For one of the best pass breakups that I've seen over the course of this playoffs, maybe over the course of the last few months. That was a great play, especially for a rookie cornerback who typically you would expect them just to, because Trey White got called for at least 2 DPIs. And you could say they were ticky-tack or not, but the difference between that and the way Taylor-Britt played was that he was patient. And that play in particular stood out to me in terms of, because it was only 24-10 there. Then the ball was going to be down deep in the Bengals territory at the end of the third quarter, and they score there, it could be a different ball game.
Yeah, if they score there, it's 24-17, and you have a 1-score game going in the fourth quarter, so it's absolutely a different game. And then also, like the Stephon Diggs play, that came on 3rd down, and since the catch didn't happen, you had a 3 and out, and then boom, the Bengals score on the next drive, they get a field goal and make it a 3-score game, and at that point, that's when even though I wouldn't say it in Slack, as Billy will gleefully point out, that's when it was over, even though I wasn't willing to say it was over until there were 0 seconds left on the clock.
The Bills have kicked there when they were down 17. I mean, whatever. I mean, I don't know. You kind of cut it to 2 scores. It feels like you give yourself more of a fighting chance.
Yes, they should have. That was
the Benbot said, Breech, you think they should? I was fine if they had, but the Benbot
if you're down 3 scores and you have to have a field goal at some point and it's 4th down, just take the field goal, because if you don't get it, the game's over. So do you want the game to be over, or do you want to try a 33-yard field goal that has a 95% success rate, or do you want to go for it on 4th and 6, which does not have a 95% success rate?
I'll tell you exactly what the success rate is according to the Benbot. Success rate for going for it on 4th and 6 from the 16 yard line with 7:32 to go in the fourth quarter, 37%. The field goal attempt, obviously 92%. The win percentage, if you succeed on going forward, it goes from 3% to 5%. And on the field goal attempt, it remains at about 2%. So I think I get it. I'm fine. I don't care. Had they kicked there, I'd have been fine with it. But I think at that point in the game, down that many, you're basically SOL, I think is the sort of the takeaway from the math nerds.
Yeah.
But
I would rather be down 2 scores than 3 scores.
I get it.
That's my main point.
Yeah. Especially if you're like trying to tell your team, like, hey, look, we got a shot here. You know, and you got Allen and explosive weapons. I understand. I mean, you know, that was not the issue. That was not the problem for the Bills, was that playmaking decision. The Bills had bigger problems that they had to deal with than that. Stephon Diggs, by the way, we mentioned that he stormed out of the locker room, and then Duke Johnson, when he brought it back. Obviously, we all knew Duke Johnson was on the Bills.
He was going home. He was cold.
Victor Garcia just asked about Stephon.
Is Duke Johnson on the Bills
outfit?
Yeah, that I don't. It looked like it was it a Santa Claus mask? I don't know what it was. It looked like a mop with the face cut out so you could see where you're walking.
He was inactive, I guess. He was on the Bills, but yeah, I don't know, man. That's a weird scene. The Bills, I think, just a really disappointing season for the Bills. For the Bengals, you live to fight another day, and you got the Chiefs in Arrowhead.
Hey, Breech, let me ask you quickly. Ryan Adams in the comments asks, is Joe Burrow better than Josh Allen?
You know what's funny? So me and our managing editor, Audie, he's a Bengals fan. And so we see I think Burrow is a top 2 quarterback in the NFL. I think it's him.
I take him first.
And Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, not Kenny Pickett? All right. Fair enough.
And, sorry, Wilson. And so, the debate 6 months ago or going into the season was Justin Herbert's better than Joe Burrow, which, I've never believed. I've never thought. I think that, Burrow's been to a Super Bowl and he just comes up clutch all the time. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see what Stephon Diggs is wearing. And if you're listening on audio, you should go on YouTube just so you can see what he's wearing. And so, and Joe Burrow's come up in bigger and bigger situations than Josh Allen has. And one thing I wrote in my picks column this past week where I picked the Bengals was that Joe Burrow is 7-0 now in the month of January. He has never lost a game in the month of January as a starter in his NFL career. If you're winning in January, you're doing pretty well for yourself in the NFL. And then you look at their fourth quarter statistics.
Undefeated in January in his college career too.
Yeah, that's true, because the national title game. And so you look at what they did in the fourth quarter this year, and Joe Burrow was a much, much better quarterback in the fourth quarter. And let's not forget, Josh Allen led the NFL in turnovers during the regular season with 22. So I would say, yes, that I would take Joe Burrow over Josh Allen.
I mean, it's hard to argue. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, as Breech mentioned, you can see what Stephon Diggs was wearing, his little toboggan ski mask thing. Maybe he was yelling at Josh Allen because it apparently cost $530 from Burberry, and he was asking for some money because that's an insane amount of money to pay for something to put on your head, not to be cold.
Well, I mean, a famous rapper kind of. I mean, he's not that famous, but the rapper's Pooh Shiesty. It's a Pooh Shiesty mask. That's why you see a lot of people wearing these ski masks in all inclement type of weather. So, I mean, people are wearing these types of masks even in hot 90-degree, 100-degree weather. It's just
that's just stupid.
That's
it's
wrong.
weird. I agree. I agree it's weird, but that is the.
Let's get to the AFC and NFC championships.
Billy needs to start a fashion podcast.
Yeah.
No,
I'll be on it, Billy.
I'm
Me
not
and you
that
co-host.
Can you be on
The San Francisco 49ers, the Eagles are -2 against the 49ers, total 45.5, and the Bengals -1 against, the Chiefs -1 against the Bengals over to 47.5. I think the more interesting one is Cincinnati and KC because it opened at KC -3, got immediately bet down like quickly. Then it got bet through 0. The Bengals were briefly favored by 1. And then it came back and settled in at KC -1. I think it's a fairly sharp line. Burrow's 3-0 against Mahomes. Look, this game is all going to depend on whether or not Patrick Mahomes is capable of being Patrick Mahomes with his high ankle sprain. Tony Romo said on the broadcast, the Bengals and Bills broadcast, that he had a high ankle sprain. He played through it on the same day that he got the ankle sprain, and then later throughout the week, it began to bother him more and more and more. So, I think Mahomes will play. He said he's going to play. It's a conference championship game. You can't see him sitting out and letting Chad Henne play against the Bengals and hoping that the Chiefs can hold on. But I do think he'll be limited. Like we've seen in the playoffs, Mahomes wins because he runs the ball, he gets out of the pocket, he creates and extends plays, especially on third down, and he picks up these back-breaking third downs. Now, should the Bengals be favored? I don't know. But I think if you like the Bengals, or if you like the Bengals in like a teaser, like you want to move the Bengals up, you'd have to do 7 point. You would want to do a 7 point teaser. The juice is more expensive because you have to move it. You want to move it through the 7, right? You don't want to make a +7 in case it lands there. You should do it now because if Patrick Mahomes isn't practicing, or we don't see him, or he's listed as like doubtful, and again, I think he's going to play, but that will cause the line likely to move closer to a pick. So now would be probably the time to bet the Bengals, unless you want to like try to play chicken with it and see whether or not the Bengals. Or whether or not Mahomes is cleared, and then the Chiefs, book on like a 3-point favorite or something. But I think one's pretty good.
Here's what I'm going to say about this game is that the national experts and people who make picks for a living, I feel like they're going to spend the whole week. Their main talking point is going to be, there's no way the Bengals can beat the Chiefs 4 straight times. Andy Reid's too smart. Patrick Mahomes is too good. And they're going to just talk yourselves in circles and convince yourself to pick the Chiefs. Don't fall for it. This is a way better Bengals team than last year. Patrick Mahomes was 100% healthy in the past 3 games where they played, and the Bengals won all 3 of them. Now they get a Patrick Mahomes who at best will maybe be 85%, maybe 70%, but there's no way he's going to be 100%. And a beat-up Mahomes going against a Bengals defense that absolutely shut down Josh Allen, who was completely mobile, would be very surprised. Like, I feel better about the Chiefs game than I do about the Bills game. I will tell you that. And that doesn't mean they're going to win. Anything can happen in the playoffs, but this is a very, very good Bengals team. I don't
disagree with any of that. I would push back that I think the narrative should be about Mahomes' ankle.
The what?
The question is, will the Bengals feel disrespected by the fact that no one's going to be talking about the Bengals?
Or will they be disrespected that they're an underdog against a team they've beaten 3 straight times who's starting a quarterback who has a high sprained ankle?
Breech, where was your heart when Shaq Lawson went low on Joe Burrow?
Oh God!
Oh my God!
In your throat.
I had to cover my eyes because I couldn't watch the replay because I didn't want to know. And then you see, Joe's limping around for about 10, 15 seconds, and especially after watching what happened to Patrick Mahomes, it was like, oh my God, it's going to be Brandon Allen versus Chad Henne in the AFC title game next week, and that's only if the Bengals can even hold on in this game, because who knows, we have a backup quarterback out there. So my heart sank.
After the game, I don't know if you were already celebrating with no clothes on, but Shaq Lawson and Joe Burrow hugged, and Shaq actually said, "My bad." Like he didn't mean to tackle him low, or I'm sure they have a history. Seemed like they knew each other. But I thought that was interesting. And Romo also said, Brinson sort of pointed out. He said, "There's no certainty that Mahomes actually plays either," which I thought was interesting. Which to Breech's point means that he could be 75%, maybe best case. So I don't know, man. This is going to be a tall hill to climb for the Chiefs. Maybe the Chiefs will use like the old school Rodney Harrison / Bill Belichick / New England Patriots motivation from the early 2000s when no one thought they were terrible and everyone thought they were going to win, and still try to convince themselves that people think they're terrible as a way to motivate themselves.
It's going to be.
I'm gonna parlay the Bengals and the Niners, and I'm gonna tease the Bengals and the Niners as well. Money line and the tease there. I like both of those.
And by the way, I will say this is just the 3rd time we've gotten an AFC Championship game rematch over the past 35 years. Do you guys want to know the last time it happened, or do you know? Last 2 times.
An AFC Championship game rematch?
AFC Championship game rematch.
Was it not? Was it Mahomes and Brady?
Nope. They only played once.
Oh, okay.
Who is it? I don't know.
Patriots, Ravens, 2011, 2012. And then before that, the last championship game rematch was 1986, 1987, Browns, Broncos. Yeah. And of course, the Broncos won both of those because they Browns have never been to a Super Bowl.
There's no one on planet Earth who believes that the Browns were.
And as that stat says, Bengals, if you're watching on YouTube, Bengals 3-0 all time in AFC Championship games. They are the only team in the AFC that is undefeated in AFC Championship games.
By the way, I see that Circa has Circa's legal. I say that. Circa has Eagles -2.5 and Chiefs -1.5 now. So maybe that moves a little bit that way. Somebody in the chat says, hedge your Super Bowl, you dummy. No, we don't hedge. We lean in. We go Joey T and load more on the Bengals. I don't care who comes out of the NFC. I just want that team. I think I want the Eagles to win financially. I want the Bengals to win because I said Bengals San Francisco before the playoffs started and before last weekend. So I will take that.
You know, I will say one thing about what the potential Super Bowl matchups could end up being is that we really could see kind of a repeat of one of the last 2 years, where 2 years ago we had Mahomes battling turf toe. He wasn't very mobile and he just got beat up by the Buccaneers defense. Or we could see a rematch of last year where the Bengals offensive line got just overpowered by a very strong defense, which Eagles and 49ers both have a strong defense. And so that certainly could happen if with either of those teams.
I think it's noteworthy. We didn't talk a lot about it. Brinson mentioned Hill. I mentioned DJ Reader. They were getting home with 4 guys consistently. Deion Dawkins had a very tough afternoon, and no disrespect to him, but I mean, that's just the reality of it. So I don't know if the Bills' offensive line is any better or worse than the Chiefs. I imagine they're probably similarly ranked. I haven't studied them closely, but my overall point is that if you're still just rushing 4 guys and having Lou Anarumo blitzing guys from places that people don't expect, and Josh Allen, he ain't Brock Purdy out there. He's been playing for a while, and even he seemed to be fooled at times and took a ton of hits as a result. I mean, that might be the great neutralizer, especially if Patrick Mahomes has to play on one leg.
If Mahomes can't run, it's a tough ask for the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs are still really good. It's just Mahomes' mobility, particularly in the playoffs, has been a difference maker for the last 5 years because you get them into third and anything, and he just extends the play, runs for the first down, or makes a crazy pass. Like, it is one of the biggest difference makers in the NFL.
Yeah, and the other part of this with the Mahomes thing is that the offensive line played so well in the second half against Jacksonville with his beat up ankle. They weren't really able to get any pressure. And if you're the Bengals, if you're a Bengals fan, the thing you're worrying about this week in Kansas City is that, look, the Bills didn't have a great pass rush after Von Miller went down. That just is what happened. They had trouble getting after the passer. Joe Burrow had all day to throw. He wasn't getting hit. But now you're going against Chris Jones. You're going against a much better Chiefs defensive line that might be able to take advantage of the fact that the Bengals are down a few offensive linemen. But, man, the offensive line looked fantastic considering the circumstances. Not even considering the circumstance. I mean, they just look fantastic overall.
Let me point out quickly, because people in the comments pointed out that the Chiefs line is better than the Bills. I just checked the advanced stats for Football Outsiders. The Chiefs are 5th in terms of pass protection, that offensive line, and the Bills are actually 7th. And some of that obviously has to do with the quarterback's mobility for both teams. In terms of running the ball, the Bills are actually better, which is sort of surprising. But all right, so I don't think there's a huge.
It's going to be 2 great games. That's the bottom line.
Huge gaping chasm between the 2 offensive lines. But the point remains. Also, update here. Bad news for me, because my only team remaining in the Super Bowl pool are the Chiefs. My quarterback's all banged up. Breech has 1 team left. His Bengals.
Yeah, guess what it is? Yeah.
No, I didn't take the Bengals now. God, I have.
Yeah, you would have
it. Psych you out, Brinson. I psych you out.
Brinson has the Eagles remaining, and that's it. And Caleb, by virtue of Breech's Bengals winning, is now down only to the 49ers.
And the generation is a stinky cologne.
Last year when we did this, me and Brinson were the only people who had teams left in the conference finals. So it was like Wilson and
3 or 4, and you had 1. Yeah, now
right. And Wilson and the listener were out. This year we all have 1 team left, which is really kind of crazy.
Very interesting. All right, that's it for the divisional round. A little disappointing this weekend. That's okay. Conference championship weekend sets up to be really, really good. 2 short lines. 2.
Robert Thomas in the comments asked about bowl takes. That comes Tuesday afternoon. So don't miss
we'll do it on Tuesday. That's right. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. For Breech, congrats to your Bengals, Breech. For Wilson, I'm Brinson. We'll see you guys later.
Hooday.